Hello, Canadian football fans, and welcome to another video paying homage to CFL All-Stars. Last time we looked at the 1960s, and in the past we looked at the 1970s twice, the 1990s twice, and we looked at the 1980s once. So I say we go back to that famous decade where the West ruled the roost. It was a terrific era for quarterbacks, and at least the Ticats waited until the Grey Cup to disappoint you most years. This wasn't one of them. They couldn't even wait that long. But anyway, yeah, they did win one, though, this decade, to be fair. But anyway, this video we're looking at 1981. That year, it was the Grey Cup that nobody expected anything from, when Warren Moon and the dominant Edmonton Eskimos, who only lost one game all year and were the three-time defending Grey Cup champions, were facing the 5-win Ottawa Rough Riders. Ottawa took a stunning 20-1 halftime lead. This was on the verge of the greatest Grey Cup upset in history. But the Eskies came back and won a 26-23 thriller with a Dave Cutler field goal in the last second, winning their record-setting fourth straight Grey Cup. A record that was previously held by the Edmonton Eskimos back in the 1950s, winning in 54, 55, and 56. And in part one, we're indeed going to be looking at the best in the West. But first, let's take a look at the world of Canadian entertainment. A group of Canadian actors were really ingraining themselves in pop culture with a sketch show known as SCTV, Second City Television, starting in the late 70s. They launched the great careers such as John Candy, Catherine O'Hara, Eugene Levy, Rick Moranis, Dave Thomas, Andrea Martin, Joe Flaherty, and Martin Short. But in 1981, the show was about to invade America at long last, being placed on NBC as a replacement for the now canceled Midnight Special. It was already a hit in Canada, but in the US it became a cult favorite and inspired the likes of Ben Stiller, Jim Carrey, Tina Fey, Judd Apatow, Bob Odenkirk, and even another Canadian comedy troupe, The Kids in the Hall. Also on Canadian television, families gathered around the set for the CTV hit series, The Littlest Hobo, the story of a German shepherd who travels across the country helping people in need and has become a staple of Canadian pop culture. SCTV wasn't the only Canadian sketch show gathering an audience, as cult hit Bizarre, presented and hosted by John Miner, was gaining some good ratings. But it was produced by American Bob Einstein, who introduced his infamous Super Dave Osborne character in Canada. And he would go on to feature various comedy legends and making appearances on the show, such as Red Fox, Wayne and Schuster, as well as Billy Van. It also featured the likes of future stars as Mike Myers and Howie Mandel. And indeed another outrageous sketch show, pretty wacky even for its time, was You Can't Do That on Television, and it was just starting to hit its stride for a very long run. In the world of movies, there were some iconic Canadian films making the rounds. The first was sex comedy, Porky's. It featured many little-known American actors seeking work in Canada, as well as many Canadian-born actors and players, including a breakout role for actress Kim Cattrall at A Court in ABC. Director Bob Clark often worked in Canada, making other Canadian cinema hits, such as iconic horror film Black Christmas and the critically acclaimed Murder by Decree. Porky's became a massive box office hit all over North America and spawned 2 sequels. Also in 1981, Toronto-born director David Cronenberg made an iconic horror film starring Toronto-born Michael Ironside in a film about telekinetic-powered psychics using their powers for an evil corporation. It was called Scanners. It was initially panned by critics but became a huge cult hit and launched Cronenberg into another level. Also, an adult animated classic, the visually enticing Heavy Metal, was made in Canada, directed by Gerald Potterson, using science fiction themes with an anthology story. It features voice acting work from SCTV stars such as John Candy and Eugene Levy. It has become a major cult favorite and lives up to its name. In music, it was a huge year for Canadian prog rockers Geddy, Alex, and Neil. Yes, talk about Rush. Their album Moving Pictures became both a critical and huge commercial success. The album peaked at number 3 in the US and spawned iconic rock songs such as Tom Sawyer and Limelight. Another rock trio, Triumph, much like Rush, was already a Canadian powerhouse. But in 1981, they released their first platinum United States album, Allied Forces, which featured the Canadian chart hit Magic Power. West Coast-based rockers Loverboy released their highly anticipated and successful sophomore album, Get Lucky, which features a smash hit Working for the Weekend. The album went triple platinum in Canada and quadruple platinum in the United States. Toronto-based Irish musicians The Rovers spawned a huge hit as the drunken yet amazingly fun anthem Wasn't That a Party hit number 3 on the Canadian charts, becoming their biggest hit and their most played song on Canadian radio all year. West Coasters Chilliwack, a longtime popular Canadian band, scored their biggest hit in 1981 with My Girl Gone Gone Gone, which was also a top 40 hit in the US. And scoring her 12th top 40 hit in the US and her 22nd in Canada was Anne Murray. She scores another successful tune with Blessed Are the Believers. And now we move on to the football. The Edmonton Eskimos dominate the league. 14 wins, just one loss, which was actually early in the season, to their division rivals Winnipeg, who finished second with an excellent 11-5 record. Overall, the Eskimos are 14-1-1. The tie came, of course, the Hamilton Tiger Cats on Labor Day. The Eskies' fourth straight Grey Cup also coincides with their fifth straight appearance in the big game, and their fifth straight first place finish, but their most dominant season yet. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, after a bad 1979 season, have come alive in the last couple of years. The BC Lions are also emerging and growing into a contender, finishing 10-6, barely clinching the third and final playoff spots, which they won in the final game of the season when they broke the hearts of the suffering Rider Nation. And Saskatchewan, despite missing the playoffs, finished with a 9-7 record. Because again, it was all the more heartbreaking because it was their first winning record since making the Grey Cup back in 1976, and they haven't even been back to the playoffs since then. Bring up the rear is the Calgary Stampeders with a 6-10 record. After a promising 1980 campaign, their inconsistency issues continue. But the Lions stunned the favored Bombers in the Western semifinal as their defense surprisingly came up really big in a 15-11 win, and they even put up a fight against the Eskimos in the Western final, but ultimately came up short, 22-16. And indeed, like other videos, we'll of course be going over the divisional selections that made the All-Canadian team. This season there are special team selections, but still none for returner. So overall on each side there will be 26 selections overall, 12 each on offense and defense, and of course 2 special teams. And now we start with special teams. And at punter, we indeed start with the champions, the Edmonton Eskimos, and Hank Olisic. He joined the Eskimos in 1977 and since then has played in the Grey Cup in all 5 seasons he has played and has now won his 4th straight. Hank was a very strategic punter, one of the smartest in the league, and studied the opposing teams on the field and their strategies superbly game in and game out. He could work with the wind, angling a kick out of bounds at the right spot to fool the best returners, or booting a kick high enough to make sure his teammates could get down there for a quick tackle. He averaged 45.7 yards per punt. That was 3rd best in the league. Punted for a total of 5,252 yards, which was 5th best, and booted 7 punt singles, which was 3rd best. This is his 4th straight and overall divisional selection. And it's also his 4th straight and overall All-Canadian selection to boot. At kicker, we have from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Trevor Kennard. The sophomore kicker, graduate of the University of Alberta, has become a very reliable kicker in the peg. Be it under rough weather elements or a warm, windless climate, Kennard could put points on the board for the Bombers, and he was an expert at long-range kicking. He complements the Bombers' powerful top-notch offense with what he can do. He led the league in kicking points with 185 and led in field goals made with a huge 39. This was his very first All-Star selection, and on top of that, achieves his very first All-Canadian selection. The West takes most special team spots as we now head to the defense. Starting at defensive end, we start with one of the more underrated members of the Eskimos defense known as Alberta Crude. And no, it wasn't because of their table manners, but more their no-holds-barred approach to the game. David Boone was definitely that type of player, joining the Eskimos in 1977, after a season each with the Lions and the Tiger Cats, now playing in his 5th straight Grey Cup, winning his 4th straight. He was an imposing 6'3", nearly 250 pounds, and played a bulldozing style, powering through some of the toughest and best offensive lines in the league, and able to add that pass pressure to any given QB. He enjoyed a fantastic season with 6 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, and was undeniably a huge part of the Eskies dynasty. This was his 3rd and final All-Star selection, and the prior 2 coming in 1977 and 79. But now he achieves his 2nd All-Canadian selection, obtaining one in 1977. He stayed with the Eskimos until 1983 and collected his 5th Grey Cup ring in the meantime. He played 1 season for the Toronto Argonauts in 1984 and retired thereafter. Also at defensive end, we moved to the Saskatchewan Roughriders for the first time, and a native of Melville, Saskatchewan, Lyle Wozniacki. Yeah, try saying that 5 times fast. A CFL journeyman who started his career in 1977 with 2 seasons as a Bomber and 1 each with Calgary and Hamilton. He finally got his big break as a part of the Big Green. He was a big reason for the Riders' resurgence despite missing the playoffs this season. He broke out with 14 sacks, which was 5th best in the league, as part of the Riders' highly improved defensive line. He played with great intensity and became an instant fan favorite. But this would be his first and only All-Star selection. The Woz, as he became known, returned in 1982, but the Riders failed to improve. He split the 1983 season between Toronto and Montreal, and his career with actually a very good season in Calgary in 1984, retiring after the season. Moving to defensive tackle, we stick to the Riders and Mike Samples, a quick thinker who could read offensive lines easily. Samples joined the Riders in 1978 and has been anchoring their defensive line through good and bad times, but was always a leader with 120% effort game in and game out. Not only good at pass pressure, he was also an expert at stopping running backs for short gains and losses. He was fearless, gritty, and always played the type of style, leading by example the way he approached any given play. He recorded a big 8.5 sacks, and this is his second All-Star selection, his first coming as a member of the Ticats in 1976. Sticking with defensive tackle, we move to one of the all-time greats. 34 years old and still a master of the game in his 13th season, John Helton, representing the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. He first garnered 8 straight selections as an All-Star from 1969 to 76 with the Stampeders and got one more in 78, giving him 9. He joined the Bombers in 1979, getting his 10th, and after missing one in 1980, this year he gets number 11. Many have said he was the hardest to coach against, but he was a dream for the Bombers defense. He never let up on his drive, and his desire to win from his opening play to the final whistle was uncanny. A quarterback was never safe when Helton was on the field. This year he recorded 7 sacks. He could land a jarring hit at any time to add pressure and give his team momentum. His short yardage game was also among the best of the CFL, so he was good at stopping running backs his whole career. Helton is nearing the end of his career, but he's still playing some of his best football. Helton and Samples actually were tied in voting, so that's why there's a third defensive tackle selection. And that would be the man known as Dr. Death, Dave Fennell of the Edmonton Eskimos Grey Cup champions. A hometown hero and Edmonton native, he endeared himself quickly to Eskimos fans with his arrival back in 1974. He earned his nickname with his killer instinct on the field game in and game out. The man who not only is vicious and nasty when it came to pass rushing, but along with his on-field aggression and determination, he was also focused, disciplined, and strategic. He was a thinking man's player, always a step ahead of the game it seemed more often than not. Again, he wins his 5th overall Grey Cup and plays in his 7th overall game, playing his first in 1974 and winning his first in 75. This year, he also recorded 7 sacks and 2 fumble recoveries. This is his 5th consecutive overall and last All-Star selection. And it also is his 5th consecutive overall and last All-Canadian selection. He took home another Grey Cup the following season and retired after the 1983 season. Everyone played with Edmonton. This means the West takes up half the defensive lineman selection with 2 out of 4. We move to linebacker, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders, Vince Goldsmith, the CFL Shenley Award winner for Most Outstanding Rookie. The Riders' drastically improved defense had a lot to do with this youngster out of Oregon. 5'11", 235 pounds, he was built like a rhino and fast as a cheetah. His skills of dodging blockers and getting to quarterbacks was something spectacular to watch. And because of this, he recorded 17 sacks, second best in the entire league. Even the biggest and best on the offensive line had trouble with Goldsmith. He could also read formations and often knew where the play was going, and won many games for his team. This, of course, is his first All-Star selection. Next at linebacker, we move back to the Edmonton Eskimos, and another man built big and quick. So quick, in fact, that was his nickname, James Quick Parker. Considered by some scouts to be too small for the game, 5'10", 250 pounds, his speed brought momentum to his pass rushing when he brought a quarterback down. He hit him with such velocity and impact it could drive them back a few extra yards than a regular hit. He could frustrate passers into making all kinds of mistakes, which also benefited the Eskimos secondary. He wins his 2nd straight Grey Cup as well, as he's become an extra boost to this already stacked Edmonton lineup. His 18.5 sacks led the entire CFL in what is just his 2nd season. This is also his first All-Star selection, and this fantastic season saw him achieve his first All-Canadian selection. Sticking with Edmonton at linebacker, dangerous Danny Kepley, who this season wins his 3rd overall and 2nd straight Shenley Award for Most Outstanding Defensive Player, which he first won in 1977. He wasn't just dangerous due to his aggressive play, as the man considered to be the leader of the Alberta Crude Corps. He played with heart and emotion, and was a vicious tackler. But what also makes him dangerous, shall we say, was that he could stymie a running game by bringing down a top rusher. Need an extra man on the pass rush? He's got that too. After all, he recorded 6 sacks. Need extra coverage on receivers? Kempley was great at that too. He was deceptively fast and garnered 6 interceptions, which was tied for 5th best in the league. Kempley was every coach's dream and every opposition's nightmare. On top of this, he wins his 5th Grey Cup, 4th straight all with the Eskimos. He has also played in 6 total at this point. This is his 5th consecutive overall and last All-Star selection dating back to 1977. It's also his 5th overall and final All-Canadian selection as he stays with Edmonton all the way until 1984 when he retired, collected another Grey Cup ring in 82. He went on to broadcast CFL games on CBC in the 1990s. The West takes 2 out of 3 in the linebacking spots, winning that core. Now we move to the secondary. And the Calgary Stampeders finally garnered their first selection, Ray Odoms. His height and powerful reach allowed him to break up passes in many different fashions, and he could keep up with the fastest and best man on that field. Overall, he had tremendous athleticism. He was also a great tackler and could shake the ball loose with a jarring hit. The Stamps' defensive backcourt was their strongest aspect of an otherwise weak defense. Odoms was a fierce competitor as well, doing all he could to lead this core. He snagged 4 interceptions, recovered a fumble. This is his 3rd straight overall All-Star selection. And with that, Odoms earns his 2nd straight and overall All-Canadian selection. We stick with defensive back, and we also stick with the Calgary Stampeders and Merv Walker. Another speedy and athletic defensive back. He too, like teammate Odoms, could throw that hit that could again either cause a fumble or an incompletion. He could frustrate any given offense in the league. He complemented the Stamp strategy, which actually had one of the best secondaries in the league. He was a pure cover man through and through, and don't let his 1 pick and 1 fumble recovery fool you. He made plays and he made them count. He joined the CFL in 1974 as a valued part of the Bombers for 5 seasons, joined the Stamps in 1979, and this would be his first and only All-Star selection. During the 1982 season, he was sent to Toronto, and he finished his career playing 5 games for the Ticats in 1983. Well, next up at defensive back, we go back to Winnipeg and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Charles Williams. He was one of the quicker backs in the league at the time, able to keep up with receivers even on trick patterns and plays. The Bombers' defense was actually pretty good, and their defensive backcourt didn't really get enough recognition that it should have. And he was indeed the anchor in breaking up the offensive onslaughts, however, from the opposition. He also snagged 3 interceptions. Williams had trouble finding his footing in the game at first. It took him a while to make a team. He did play 7 games for the Philadelphia Eagles in 1978. He joined the Bombers in 1979 and fit in nicely. This is actually his 2nd straight in overall selection and his last. Sadly, injury issues caused him to suit up for only 5 games in 1982, and he retired soon after. We go back to Rider Nation in Saskatchewan and Ken McEachran. He joined the Riders in 1974 and has been a leader of the defensive backcourt for quite some time. And Ken's specialty was covering the long ball. And he could put long passing QBs in the CFL into frustration. There are many of them in the league at this point as well. He could go 40 yards or beyond down the field and break up what is a surefire play from a powerful offense. He had 2 picks, a fumble recovery, and also received the Tom Payne Memorial Award for displaying sportsmanship and making significant contributions to his team and the community. This is his 3rd All-Star selection, and 2nd straight, his first game back in 1976. Wrapping up the defensive backs, we return to the Grey Cup champion Edmonton Eskimos and Ed Jones. He had a mean streak, make no mistake about it. He would get face-to-face with a receiver and sometimes get downright nasty and could even frustrate them and throw them off their game. But also, he was still careful never to seldom make a penalty. But he was also very smart and could read a given pattern and was ahead of the curve, and his tight coverage and speed and overall agility is the reason why he picked off 7 passes this season, which was tied for 2nd best in the CFL. He was always ready to make a given play at any given moment. He joined the Eskimos in 76. He played in 5 straight Grey Cups as he wins his 4th straight this season. He also achieved his 4th straight overall and last All-Star selection. And with that, he achieves his 3rd straight overall and last All-Canadian selection. He collected his 5th Grey Cup ring in 82, but in 1984 he was sent to the Lions where he only played 9 games and retired. The West takes up 2/5 on the defensive backcourt, and overall they have 6 All-Canadian selections on defense, half of the total on that side of the ball, meaning 6 will be available for the East. And now we go to the other side of the ball on offense and start with the Trenchmen, the offensive line. And we finally get to the BC Lions as we start with the offensive line with their first selection on this All-Star team. It's at center, anchoring their offensive line and steering the ship all the way, the great Al Wilson. A native of Duncan, BC, when Wilson arrived in Vancouver to play for the Lions in 1972, he changed the fortunes of their offensive line, and while it took quite some time, they built the core around him to make it more formidable. He was fast off the snap, quick to the jump and block, and gave quarterback Joe Paupow this season a lot to work with, as well as BC's good running game. He was a leader on the field and was one of the best pure blockers in the game. He's become a popular hero among Lions fans for his work ethic and his determination to protect those behind him at any cost so a play can be made. This was a 7th straight overall and final All-Star selection dating back to 1975. And it was also his 7th straight overall and final All-Canadian selection. Wilson spent his entire career at the Lions, retiring after the 1986 season. We then moved to guard and to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Nick Pistaja. He officially began his career in 1975 with 2 seasons with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, but it was when he joined the Argos he found his groove and his game. He was gritty, nasty, and very old school. 6'1", 255, and was also very fast, meaning he could be blocking before a defensive lineman could even get a step or an inch, and at times was called Quick Nick. He was an All-Star with the Argos in 1979, but joined the Bombers in 1980, and has become relied on for giving Bombers time to make those plays with that amazing passing game they had. This is his 2nd All-Star selection and 1st as a Bomber. At the other guard position, we stick to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Shenley Award winner for the CFL's Most Outstanding Offensive Lineman, Larry Butler. At 6'2", 250 pounds, he was a complete package. In addition to him being a real quick hit blocker and stay with the attacking lineman as best as anyone can, he's also good at reading defensive patterns and able to think quick on the fly. Great agility and footwork. It was hard to throw him off his game. After playing both seasons of the ill-fated WFL starting in 1974, he joined the Ticats in 1976 and was dominant from the word go, being the lead blocker for the Cats' running game, which was top-notch from 1976 to 79, and was an All-Star 4 straight times in that period. Since joining the Bombers last year in 1980, he has proven to be beneficial to short yardage running plays for the Bombers' backfield and, of course, giving time for that great passing game to operate. He was an All-Star last year at the Bombers, and now this year, having his best season yet, overall being his 6th straight overall and last All-Star selection. He is also the first Bomber to win Outstanding Offensive Lineman since the award's inception in 1974. And this will be his 3rd consecutive and overall All-Canadian selection. And last, of course, he stunned everyone by retiring after what was his best season. And now we move to offensive tackle and back to the Edmonton Eskimos and Hector Potier. He was 6'3" and a pure ox at 290 pounds. He joined the Eskimos back in 1978, where in his rookie year he won the Grey Cup, and now he has won 4 straight in his 4 seasons. A native of St. Catharines, Ontario, he can stop even the best rush ends or outside linebackers in the league in their tracks. And since the moment he donned the green and yellow, he has been a force out there and proved to be reliable for future Hall of Fame quarterbacks Tom Wilkinson and Warren Moon, as well as the Eskimos' dangerous running game, including Moon's scrambles. This is his very first All-Star selection. And also his first, what would be actually his only All-Canadian selection, but of course he'd have a few more divisional selections by the end of his career. We stay at offensive tackle, and we stay with champions Edmonton and High Prairie, Alberta native Bill Stevenson. Towering 6'4" and a solid 270-plus pounds, he was the man who led and guided this strong Edmonton offensive line. A true powerful force, could send defensive linemen not just away from the play, but even down to the turf on occasion. He was the one who controlled the Eskimos' top-notch formations, providing great protection for one of the best passing games of all time. He arrived in Edmonton after 2 seasons in the WFL in 74 and 75, joining the team later in that same year, winning the Grey Cup that year. And has been a part of 4 in a row now during this dynasty, giving him a total of 5. His toughness is what made the Eskimos' offensive line to be built on, and he achieves his 3rd straight overall and final All-Star selection. It was also his 2nd straight and final All-Canadian selection, having achieved this in 1979 as well. He would stay with the Eskimos all the way to the end of the 1988 season before retiring, adding 2 Grey Cup rings to his collection, 2 more that is, making it 7 overall. And that means the West takes up 4 out of the 5 offensive lineman selections, dominating the category. And now we move to the receivers. We start at tight end and the awesome Joey Walters of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Since joining the CFL in 1977 in his first 4 seasons, he had a combined 1,833 yards, as he was primarily used on short patterns and blocks. But the Riders coaches finally realized not only was he solid at blocking and could catch those short passes, but he was deceptively fast and could take off when he needed to. That's why this year he had a league-best 1,715 yards receiving, as he was utilized oh so well in this revamped Riders offense. He knew how to dodge tacklers and even power through them with a good stiff arm and broke out with this huge season. His hands were every bit as quick as his arms were strong. In addition to that, he caught 91 passes, second best in the league. He also averaged 18.8 yards per catch, which was fourth best, and his 14 receiving touchdowns was tied for best in the league, and overall his touchdowns were ranked tied for third. This is his first All-Star selection. And it's also his first All-Canadian selection. And now we ship back to Winnipeg, and that's slot back the great Joe Poplawski, the CFL's most outstanding Canadian Shenley Award winner. The first Bomber since Jerry James in 1957 to win the award. Born in the city of Edmonton, he was actually cut by the Eskimos in 1978 and signed by the Bombers, where he had a great rookie season, and he was named the CFL's most outstanding rookie. But in 79, he suffered an injury just 2 games into the season and was out for the rest of it. He had a big comeback season in 1980, and this year has his best yet. He achieves his first 1,000-plus yard season with 1,271, sixth best in the league. He had 84 catches, which was third best, and averaged an excellent 15.1 yards per catch, and his 8 receiving touchdowns were 8th best. Joe had an incredible reach, making difficult catches, and could turn short pass patterns into long gains. He is resilient. He could take a big hit and still hang on to the ball, and could also take off with a long ball when needed. He could also use his shoulders to power through tacklers and fight for extra yardage. This is his second All-Star selection, his first being his rookie year in 1978. And it's also his second All-Canadian selection. Well, we moved to wide receiver and stayed with Winnipeg and Eugene Goodlow. A star at Kansas State, he made his way to the CFL, joining the Bombers in 1980. He had size, speed, and had an incredible leap, making those big, spectacular highlight reel catches, but would take a risk diving for the ball and make a big play. After only playing 5 games in his rookie season, he was a starter this season, and was superb with 1,494 yards receiving, third best in the league. His 100 receptions, however, was the absolute best in the league and set a brand new CFL record, beating the record of Eskimo star and Hall of Famer George McGowan, who set it in 1975. He averaged 14.9 yards per catch, had 14 touchdowns receiving, again tied for first, and tied for third overall. He had strong hands to boot, able to grasp the ball, and very rarely ever prone to dropping it. He was also great in short yardage situations, was very versatile in his play for any given situation at any given time of the game. It looked like he was on his way to a long and storied career, but sadly that wasn't the case. This was his only All-Star selection. He had injury-plagued season for the Bombers in 1982, but still had 500-plus yards in 6 games. But then he actually made his way to the NFL, where he played 4 seasons for the New Orleans Saints, and he had a decent run there. But he retired in 1986, but attempted a comeback in the CFL with Ottawa in 1989, but was cut after 2 games. And we're sticking with wide receivers. We go to the BC Lions and Ty Gray. Built like a slot back, but the speed of a wideout, he's very much a multi-purpose player and the highlight of BC's receiving core. He could fool even the best secondaries in the league with his superb leg movement and just plain outrun them. His efficiency on the long ball, or even just fight for the first down, was what helped make BC a more formidable club this season. This being his 3rd season, he caught for 1,428 yards, which is 4th best in the league, which more than doubled his first 2 seasons combined. He caught 63 passes and averaged a league best 22.7 yards per catch. He caught for 9 touchdowns, which was 7th best in the league, and overall his 9 was tied for 9th. He was someone else who looked to be ready for a promising and big career, but this didn't need to be his only selection. He had an injury-rattled season in 1982 and was shipped to Ottawa the following year. He looked like he was slowly getting back into the groove, but by 1983, it was clear injuries had taken their toll. He was cut after 2 games with Saskatchewan in 1984 and retired thereafter. Also, Gray and Goodlow were tied in voting, meaning there is a 3rd wide receiver selection. And that is, from the Grey Cup champion Edmonton Eskimos, the incredible Brian Kelly. He wasn't just great at the Canadian game, he, like quarterback Warren Moon, perfected it. A strategist with pure natural skills and able to adapt to any given situation, he had it all. The speed, the quickness, being on short patterns and trying to gain yards. He was just always ready for that pass. Or the fact that, he could just burn you on the long ball and could make those highlight reel catches and would make any risk or sacrifice to do so. Any means necessary and make the big play. It made him a danger every which way on the field. He was always great at diverting defensive backs into making a mistake, reading the opposition to perfection. He was a defensive back's worst nightmare. He joined the Eskimos in 1979, and this year he wins his third straight overall Grey Cup. Thus far, he has the best season of his career, with 1,665 yards receiving, second best in the league. His 74 receptions was fifth best. He averaged 22.5 yards per catch, which was second best in the league. And his 11 receiving touchdowns was tied for third, and overall touchdowns was tied for fifth. In all 3 seasons he has played thus far, he has made the All-Star team. And he has also made the All-Canadian team for the last 3 seasons as well. The West takes 3 out of 4 All-Canadian spots on the receiving corps. And now we move to the backfield. Now at running back, we return to the Grey Cup champion Edmonton Eskimos and Jim Germany. A multi-purpose back who can make any key play for his team. Need a first down on second and third or short? You call Jim. It's either a short pass or a nice run to follow a block. And speaking of which, you need someone to follow a big block and gain some significant yardage, you handed it off to Jim. Or how about a guy who can catch a short pass and move the sticks? Yep, that was Jim. Or how about an extra back to throw a block? He was your guy. His 861 yards rushing was 4th best in the league. His 5.5 yards per carry was 2nd best. His 18 rushing touchdowns led the entire league, and his 19 touchdowns tied a CFL record. Yes, he was grossly underrated force in this Eskimos dynasty, and this year wins his 4th straight Grey Cup. This is his 2nd overall and last All-Star selection, the first being in 1979. And this would be actually his first and only All-Canadian selection. Unfortunately, injuries plagued his next 2 seasons, but he still got a 5th Grey Cup ring in 1982, but retired after the 1983 season. And sticking with running back, we now go to the BC Lions and Larry Key. He was a workhorse for this evolving Lions team. He could dodge tackles, use every bit of ability to power through defenses, and could always find that opening and take off for long gains and make the defenses pay a price. Easy for me to say. He led the Lions offense with his smart diversions and abilities to make things happen. His 1,098 yards rushing was 2nd best in the league and a career best, and the 3rd 1,000 yards plus rushing season of his career. He was also dangerous on short pass patterns with his 331 yards receiving, and was able to pick up yardage for his team on the short game. His 5.4 yards per carry was tied for 4th best in the league. His 17 rushing touchdowns was 2nd best in the league. And yes, his 19 overall was tied with Germany and tying that CFL record this season. This was his 2nd All-Star selection, his first week in 1979. It would also be his last. This is also his 2nd All-Canadian selection and his last. He spent 1 more season with the Lions and still played well, but after a year away from the game, he made his USFL debut in 1984, but he left the game in general soon after. The West takes both backfield positions, and they continue to dominate the offense, and now we move to last and most certainly not least, the quarterback. And indeed, at quarterback, from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the great Dieter Brock, who this year, for the 2nd straight season, is named the CFL Shenley Award winner as the most outstanding player, becoming just the 2nd player in CFL history to do so at this point. And it's easy to see why. A true thinking man's quarterback, he was a master strategist who utilized every aspect of his offense. He could read a given defense to boot, and was able to expose weaknesses in a given game on the opposition. He knew what plays to make at any given moment. A strong arm who could bomb the ball down the field as well, or able to simply just move the sticks, getting those first downs by keeping his offense disciplined and focused on the task at hand. He also knew how to utilize the clock and communicate it well with his offensive line to ensure that he would have time to make the plays that he could execute expertly. And he was simply a marvel at what he could do. In the CFL game, again, he truly perfected it and executed it in many ways that few have ever done before or since. He led the league with 4,796 yards passing, which set a CFL record that eclipsed that of Sam Echeverry's record of 4,723 back in 1956. His 32 touchdown passes led the league. He completed 354 passes, best in the league, and a new CFL record that was previously held by himself a year prior with 304. Wow. And he had a phenomenal completion percentage of 62.5%, which was 2nd best in the league. Dieter Brock wasn't just your talented, prototypical CFL quarterback. He was a pioneer when it came to strategy and efficiency. And with that, he also garners his 2nd straight overall divisional selection. And, of course, with this epic season, that also means he has his 2nd straight and overall All-Canadian selection as well. Wow. The West takes 10 added 12 spots on the offense, dominating that category this season, truly showing just how great this division really is. Overall, they take 18 of the 26 All-Canadian spots, asserting their dominance, meaning they win the overall All-Canadian selections for the 4th straight season. It should be noted that CFL's interception leader, Larry Crawford of the Lions, and the CFL's leading rusher, and James Sykes of the Stampeders, were not selected. Try figuring that out. So out of the 28 selections for Divisional All-Stars, just remember, there were ties in some categories. An extraordinarily impressive 10 have made it to the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. That's just under a third. The first would be John Helton of the Bombers, to no surprise. He retired after the 1982 season. First ballot in 1986. Dr. Death Dave Fennell of the Eskimos got the call in 1990, and yeah, he waited a few extra years, but either way, he got what he deserved. Iconic receiver of the Edmonton Eskimos, Brian Kelly, was inducted in 1991, his first year of eligibility. There was just no ifs, ands, or buts about that one. And quarterback Dieter Brock of the Bombers actually waited a bit, but he did get the call in 1995. 1 year later, in 1996, Danny Kepley of the Eskimos got his overdue call to the Hall. 1997, Al Wilson, the star offensive lineman of the Lions, finally got his call to the Hall, waiting 8 years after eligibility. In 1998, Joe Poplawski, the star receiver of the Bombers, got his long overdue selection. James Parker of the Eskies, who was one of the CFL's all-time quarterback sack leaders, had to wait a ridiculous 6 years after his eligibility, but got there in 2001. The CFL, also much like the Pro Football Hall of Fame, sometimes takes forever to recognize the unsung heroes of the game, and that was the case for punter Hank Kalisic, who after years of waiting and setting many punting records, or at least being close, took his rightful place amongst the greats in 2018. Waiting close to 30 years for his induction was Vince Goldsmith of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, finally made it in 2024. Should be no surprise that 5 out of the 10 are Eskimos players as part of their major dynasty. But we also have 3 great Bombers and 1 each from the Green Riders and Lions. But I also point out there actually might be 2 more Bombers that deserve to be in here. Larry Butler and Nick Bastaja deserve another look. Butler may have only played 6 seasons, but he was an all-star in every one of them. Sadly, he passed away this past May. As for Nick Bastaja, he was a 7-time all-star, and like Butler, will go on to win the CFL's most outstanding offensive lineman. Well, it should come to very little surprise that the Edmonton Eskimos led the way with 10 selections in the West. But what is surprising, it's 2 less than last season. They were incredible on all sides of the ball, however, with 4 on offense, 5 on that Alberta crew defense, and 1 on special teams. This is the 4th straight season the Eskies lead the West. Winnipeg comes in a close second with 8 All-Stars, as their offense actually has more than the Eskimos with 5, and 2 on their solid defense and 1 on special teams. Saskatchewan, despite missing the playoffs again this year, again, they had a solid season, came in third with 5 selections. They did have 1 on offense, as they did have one of the best receivers in the league, but their superpower was on defense. They had 4 selections. BC had 3 selections, all on offense, as that was their strong point, as their defense was still growing. And the last place Stamps had 2, both on defense. But that indeed does it for part 1 of our look at the 1981 CFL All-Stars, as we finish with the West Division. Stay tuned for part 2 as we head out east. Is there any other season you'd like to see us cover? Please let us know in the comments and like and share the video. Also, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, I'll see ya.